Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So this one is half Italian on the home side and half Norwegian on the away side, although in fairness the Norwegian brewery here, you could argue that these guys are Italian as well because they've got some very strong Italian connections, and you'll hear about that a little bit later on in the video. But this is a very well respected Italian brewery, and it's one that's been around for a very long time, but it's only more recently that they've started to get their beers out there a little bit more. So I'm very excited to see how this beer turns out. So for the home side of things then, we are going to go down to Milan in the north of Italy, and we're going to have a look at my first beer from Birrificio Lambrate. So this one is the Tiramisu Imperial Stout. It comes in at 11.5% ABV, and this one is brewed in collaboration with Ølkymisten, who are a gypsy, nomad, cuckoo brewery, whatever you want to call them, based in Oslo, the capital city in Norway. So I've heard that this beer is a bit of a beast, and I'm sure it was my friend Craig over at Kent Beer Reviews that was telling me that, and for him to come out with such a strong statement about a beer, you know, it does make you kind of stand up and pay attention if you like. So if Craig says this is a good beer, I'm sure that I'm in for a bit of a treat today. So after I finish filming my own review, I will need to go over to his channel and have a little look at it. So make sure you guys do the same if you want a second opinion on this beer. So yeah, very curious to see how this one turns out. I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. It's always cool to try some more different pastry stouts and things like that. I guess we should call this one a pastry stout rather than simply an imperial stout. But yeah, definitely cool to introduce these two breweries to you here on the channel as well. And as I've told you before, the Italian beer scene really is thriving these days. It seems to be a bit of an unwritten rule that in Europe, if you have a good wine country, when they start having a go at craft beer, they tend to do very well. You know, in my experience, Greece, Slovenia, Italy, Spain and Portugal, by all accounts as well, are doing some very interesting things these days. So really looking forward to tasting this one, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I could do in the future, both from Birrificio Lambrate and from Ølkymisten. Very first time I'm encountering both of these breweries, like I said, but hopefully not the last. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Italian beers that I've reviewed for you, and another one for all the Norwegian beers. This beer will appear in both of those because it is dual nationality, and those lists are being added to whenever I get the opportunity. Like I said, there's all there's all the social media and things to do with the breweries as well. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then, to tell you a little bit about Birrificio Lambrate first off then, since they are the home brewery. So Birrificio Lambrate, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Milan in the north of Italy, and these guys were founded back in 1996, which makes them one of the oldest Italian craft breweries. So today there are 5 owners behind the company. This is Fabio and Alessandro Brocca, Paolo Moran, and then Davide and Gianpaolo Sangiorgi. So Fabio is the master brewer, and his first exposure to what he calls proper beer was in the 1990s when they were on holiday in Belgium with Gianpaolo and Davide. And from there, you know, they decided, from trying all these different beers in the Netherlands and Belgium, they developed the idea to open a pub in Milan. And it was actually Gianpaolo and Davide's father, who is a professor of agriculture. He was the one that pushed them into kind of producing their own beer rather than simply importing beers from Belgium or the Netherlands and then reselling them. He really pushed them down this idea of brewing their own stuff. So they started off with a very small 150 litre brewing system, and that sat in the right hand side of the pub for about two months before they they had to scale it up. So you know, they produced 2 different beers in the beginning and then gradually just scaled up their brewing there. So the original 3 owners started operating this company simply as a brew pub, and as I say, it just gradually kind of scaled up over the years. And then Alessandra and Paolo joined the company a little bit later on. Later on in 2015, they started working on a new production facility that has a 40 hectolitre brewing system. If you go on the brewery website, you'll see a really nice time-lapse video of them working on all the tiling and all the tanks and installations and things like that. Very, very nicely done video, I have to say, and this has helped them expand their production massively and get their beers exported a little bit. But these days they've got two bars, one in Via Aldelchi, and then the other one in Via Camillo Golgi, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and then the production brewery can be found on Via Privata Gaetano Sabodio, and all of these are kind of to the northeast of the main central part of Milan city. But the brewery takes its name after the Lambrate district of the city, and of course you might have heard of Lambretta as well, which does the same thing. And as of June 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced just over 100 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. I guess there might be more than that haven't been marked on Untappd. I mean, this brewery does go all the way back to 1996, and I can't remember exactly when Untappd would have come in, but probably there's been a good few other beers being produced by this brewery that haven't been marked up on Untappd yet. But still, 100, I think it was 104 was the exact number when I looked it up on Untappd. 104 beers from this brewery, I would think, makes them one of the most prolific ones that you'll find in Italy, actually. So yeah, one of the older and more established breweries, I guess you could say, in Italy. So definitely cool to introduce these guys to you here on the channel for the very first time. My very first review from Birrificio Lambrate of Milano. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Birrificio Lambrate. These guys were actually a bit difficult to find information on. The first time I tried to research this brewery, I just found, you know, nothing, but I got lucky the second time, finding a few more articles once I found out the names of the owners and stuff like that. That made it a little bit easier, but yeah, definitely nice, as I say, to introduce these guys to you here on the channel. So if you want to learn more about Birrificio Lambrate, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and of course you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that they've done then. So yeah, on to the Norwegian side of things then, and this is a very short part actually. So Ølkymisten, these guys, as I mentioned to you earlier, are a gypsy cuckoo nomad brewery that are based in Oslo, the capital city of Norway, and this brewery is owned by the Italian Luca Sacomandi. So he previously worked for Birra Baladin in Italy, and he's also worked for Kjøskjelleren in Oslo as well, which is a very, very nice kind of brew pub thing that I really recommend that you check out. I really enjoyed going there. I wish I'd filmed an out and about video when I was there, but he decided after working there that he wanted to found his own company back in 2017, and so far they've produced 13 different beers. There's a good number of the big kind of imperial pastry stouts in there, there's a few New England IPAs, there's one or two sours and things like that as well, but 13 different beer varieties there, and I do hope that in the future I can review a couple of those for you there. But that was all the information that I was really able to find on Ølkymisten just now. If you translate the name into English, it literally means the beer chemist, if you like. So yeah, that was all I was able to find on Ølkymisten. I'll put the brewery website in the description for you below. I think it's only Facebook and Instagram that they have at the moment, so still a very, very kind of small scale operation, but a gypsy cuckoo nomad brewery based in Oslo. So yeah, that's all I can tell you about them. Check out the links in the description below, but yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So that is both of your breweries covered then. Like I said, even the Norwegian brewery has some very, very strong Italian roots there, an Italian owner, of course. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this one then. So I'll let you have a little look at the artwork of this beer before we open it up. As you can see, beautifully presented, this one. The Italians, you know, they always, I have to say that, the Italian beers, it's a bit like the cars actually, the Italian beers and cars and things always tend to look pretty damn nice actually. So they definitely take pride in the way they present things, the Italians, you have to say that. But yeah, you can see there, there is the Birrificio Lambrate symbol. Just checking that you can see that on the camera, and then just above it is the Ølkymisten thing. This one has a nice little sort of plastic top on it. I'll need to see what the bottle cap is like once we open it up as well. But it tells you a lot of stuff in Italian on the side here as well. Yeah, it kind of repeats itself as well. So it says, yeah, most of the stuff on the side here is in Italian. And I studied studiando italiano per 1 anno finale a scuola, but I have forgotten quite a bit. My Italian I don't think was ever that advanced to be able to read all the stuff that's on here. But yeah, to tell you about the stats of the beer, I took these down from beforehand. This one is brewed with muscovado sugar, milk sugar, Honduran coffee beans, cocoa nibs, and also some vanilla flavourings added to it as well. So yeah, an 11.5% pastry stout, this one. Without further ado, let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting. My first review, both from Ølkymisten and from Birrificio Lambrate. As I said to you earlier, this beer appeared in the Tillfälligt assortiment in Systembolaget here in Sweden. Oh, and it does have, yep, there you can see, there is the Birrificio Lambrate bottle cap on this one. Let me just put that a bit closer to the camera to let you see. That's a nice bottle cap. I will definitely be adding that one into my collection for sure. But yeah, you can see nice little paper top on this one, so we'll just get that off so we can actually pour the beer. There was a little bit of smoke came out of this one. But yeah, you can see on the site, on the back of this actually, I should have showed you that, Indipendente Artigianale, so independent artisanal beer. So they say birra artigianale, I believe is the Italian term for craft beer or artisanal beer, if you want to translate it literally. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting then. An 11.5% Imperial Pastry Stout. So yeah, I think this might actually be the first pastry stout that I've had from Italy as well, come to think of it. Most of the Italian beers I've had have been like IPAs and sours and things like this. I think this might be, yeah, this might well be the first pastry stout. I think this is the first pastry stout that I've had from Italy. So yeah, as you can see and as you would expect, this one has poured a lovely dark ebony rosewood colour. You can see there's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of where that head should be. The head, it had a little bit of a kind of medium to dark tan foamy quality to it. You can see there is still a little bit of a foamy ring around this one. One or two little bubbles heading up towards the bottom of the head there, but you know, overall it does look pretty much as you'd expect from an Imperial Stout. If I put the light through it, it does have a little hint of a kind of Coca-Cola, Pepsi coloured edge to it, but otherwise this beer is pretty much dark as night. You can see some really small bubbles just creeping up towards the bottom of that head there. But I mean, overall, it looks very, very nice and pretty much what you would expect from an Imperial Stout. Not much head retained on this one. That tends to happen when you get to the higher alcohols, of course, and if the stout doesn't have any wheat and things in it, then that also affects the level of head retention that you're going to get. But yeah, it looks like a very, very nice beer, this one. So let's take a closer look at the aroma then and see how we get on. Very, very curious about this beer, as I have to say. Oh, yeah, that's a monster. That really is very, very nice. Now, I've told you in other reviews that I've done recently, I've really kind of fallen in love with coffee stouts, and a lot of that is thanks to the Key and the Sidamo Dimtu that I reviewed from Dugas Brewery, you know, about a year or so ago now, I guess. And you know, coffee beans, they're probably the most complex adjunct, I think, that you can add into a beer. You know, coffee beans, they can be aromatic, they can be floral, they can be fruity, they can be earthy. You know, they've got a whole, they've got a whole profile of their own, if you like, and it's all about how high above sea level these things are grown. You know, the MASL, they call it, the MASL, meters above sea level. And from what I gather, the higher above sea level that you grow these things, the more you start to get fruity and aromatic qualities out of them. So let's focus on the coffee beans with this one for a minute, because it's Honduran coffee beans, and I've never actually had something, I believe, with Honduran coffee beans in it before. So for me, the coffee beans that are in this, they really strike me as being quite aromatic. They've got a nice little bit of a fruity quality to them as well. There is a bit of an almost slightly reddish fruity note, but at the same time it's a little bit citrusy. And as I say, this is just the coffee beans we're talking about here. So a good little bit of floral aromaticity to them. There's a very light earthiness as well. But yeah, quite light, quite aromatic and floral. And a good little bit of a kind of reddish, fruity, well, not reddish, maybe berryish fruity quality, dark berry fruityish quality. And also just a wee touch of citrus there. And that's only the coffee beans that we're talking about. But generally speaking, the aroma of this beer, I find it very, very sweet. That's kind of what you would expect from a pastry stout, right enough. And you've just got the kind of coffee sitting towards the back of the nose in the background. But even the coffee actually comes across as very smooth and very sweet in this aroma. You've got some lovely brown sugary qualities to this one. When you've got Demerara sugar in this beer, of course you are going to get some of that. You've got the lovely kind of vanilla notes coming out of it. And you can definitely smell a little bit of it. There's a good bit of chocolate in here, so you get some of the darker, higher percentage cocoa chocolates, you know, a sort of 70-80% kind of cocoa, but at the same time you get a lighter kind of 30 or 40% milk chocolate in there. That might well be due to the kind of lactose sugar that's in here, or the milk sugar as they're calling it, so it might well be down to that milk sugar, but it might also be down to the vanilla as well. So you get some lovely milky chocolates out of this, you get a bit of the stronger, darker chocolate, some lovely kind of brown sugary notes in there. It doesn't come across as oily or treacly or molasses or anything like that. It comes up pretty much like a straight kind of sweet caramel, actually, not toasted or anything. You've got the lovely coffee beans in there. There's a few woody undertones to this beer as well. Yeah, definitely a few nice woody things in there, and you've got a few kind of nutty notes like almonds and hazelnuts and things like that. There is just a few of those kind of lighter, kind of nutty aromas coming out of this beer. So I mean, in terms of pastry stouts, it does have that little bit of a coffee backbone to it. And pastry stouts, you know, the ones that I have tried have had a little bit of a kind of roasty toasty backbone to them, in fairness. And this one seems to be less roasty and toasty, but more leaning towards a kind of smooth coffee to get the kind of darker side of it out. But I have to say, the aroma of this one, the malt and adjuncty side of the aroma, is absolutely spot on. I think this is very, very nice. Starting to lose my voice there, terrible. But yeah, the aroma of that is beautiful. If you get the chance to try this beer, just take a little bit of time and enjoy that aroma for yourself. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, definitely a little bit of earthiness to this one, but quite a smooth earthiness, I would say. You get a little touch of floral character out of it, but again, that's quite minimal. Some lighter grassiness there, and then at the front of the nose, you know, it's all about the fruity side of this beer. So for me, there's a nice little bit of a kind of plummy note to this one, a lot of juicy plums. It does have a little bit of a kind of pruny note to it as well. It's got a little bit of a kind of sharper pruny kind of quality to it. But yeah, some sharper raisins in there as well, juicy figs. And then the further you go into the aroma with this one, I think you start to get, on top of the figs, you start to get these typical kind of blackcurranty, blackberry aromas coming out of the beer. But yeah, the aroma of this one is beautiful. The coffee for me really stands out. The Honduran coffee is definitely one of the quirks of this beer. The brown sugars and the way that the chocolatey notes come out in this is very, very nice. Of course, when it's called Tiramisu Imperial Stout, it's based on the Italian coffee dessert, actually. I don't find this one overly cakey, but I'm guessing that in the flavour it might come out as being a little bit more cakey than it is in the actual aroma. But I will say the aroma to this beer is beautiful. Take a little bit of time and just appreciate that before you actually go in and taste the beer. But we're going to taste this one now. This one is the Tiramisu Imperial Stout, coming in at 11.5% ABV, an Imperial Pastry Stout, however you want to call it, from Birrificio Lambrate, founded back in 1996 in Milan in the north of Italy, brewed in collaboration with Ølkymisten, who are an Italian-owned gypsy brewery, cuckoo brewery, whatever you want to call them, in Oslo in Norway. Let's get stuck into this one. Slange, skål, salute. Ooh, that's interesting. That's an interesting beer, this one. First impression, very, very slick. Lovely slickness to this beer. I will say straight away, this one gets a big, big thumbs up. I like this. It really is like tiramisu. I haven't had a tiramisu in a long time, but you know, it is a little bit nostalgic here. It really is giving me a little bit of a kind of nostalgia here. If you like tiramisu, this is basically just liquid tiramisu. Spot on. So thumbs up to both Lambrate and to Ølkymisten for this one. As I've heard that Ølkymisten are very capable in this pastry stout category, and I know that, as I say, Birrificio Lambrate, these guys are a very well respected brewery in Italy. You know, so it's not surprising that when the two of them have cracked heads together, that this is what they've produced. This is really spot on. If you get the chance to try this beer, definitely have a go at it. It's a nice cross between a a kind of coffee stout and what you would expect from a pastry stout. This is top class, so well done to both breweries here. And I mean, just yesterday I reviewed that stout from Cervejeira Dois Corvos down in Portugal as well. It kind of shows you, when you find beers like this, it shows you the quality of craft beers that we have across Europe. So I can go from Portugal one day to Italy the next and find beers that are, you know, very different but equally as good quality. This is awesome. So yeah, let's try and break down this beer a little bit then. So this one's interesting because it almost feels like the backbone of the beer, it almost feels like quite leathery. It really feels that you've just got a kind of leathery flavour that blankets the kind of middle third of your palate and the back third of your palate. It really feels kind of leathery there. It almost feels as if it's a little bit barrel aged. So yeah, kind of a leathery, slightly woody quality just forming the backbone of this beer, which is very, very interesting. So yeah. So yeah, I really like how this one, I really like how all the flavours in this go together. It's definitely one of these beers that has a good level of complexity to it, and you just love to see how all these flavours go together. So as you go towards the back third of your tongue here, you do get a few more of the kind of roasty, toasty elements of the coffee sitting on top of that kind of woody, leathery sort of thing. There are a few little bits of kind of black malty graininess and things sitting there, but I think the coffee and everything else just smoothens this beer out really, really nicely. I'm guessing that the milk sugar is the thing that's just smoothing this out. I'm not sure if milk sugar is different from lactose. I mean, what does it say in the English here? Does it say... yeah, it is lactose. Yeah, they're just saying milk sugar. So yeah, this one, that makes sense then. The reason that this beer is so smooth is because of the lactose in it. So yeah, milk sugar. Should have put two and two together there. Terrible chemistry degree going to bad use, or going to, yeah, my chemistry degree proving to be useless there, because it was milk sugar. Someone had written in the thing I read saying it was milk sugar. So yeah, but yeah, the lactosey notes, as I say, they really just smoothen out everything there, but you get a bit of a kind of roasty, toasty, black malty note there, some of the more bitter notes of the coffee there, but then the lactose, I think, just spreads out across those, the front, the kind of middle third of your palate and the back third of your palate. It is very, very nice there. So yeah, if you go to the front corners of your palate, then go diagonally back, you'll start to get a few kind of woody elements out of the beer. If you go to the very centre of your palate, it has a really interesting kind of layer to it. So let's focus on that middle third of your palate then. As I say, you've got that woody kind of leathery base to the beer. The lactose is coming in on top of that and just smoothing it out. And then you get the kind of coffee, the smoothness of the coffee just sitting there. And the coffee, it's got a lovely kind of smooth earthiness to it, but at the same time, the further you go into the aftertaste, you do get a little bit, there's a little bit of aromaticity there. I would say that the coffee doesn't quite have as much aromaticity as it did in the aroma. It does have a little bit more. If you go to the back third of your tongue and pay attention to the coffee flavours, it does have a little bit more aromaticity to it there, but in the middle of the palate, it strikes me as being a little bit smoother and a little bit more earthy and a little bit fruitier as well, to be honest with you. You can feel the coffee flavours and the kind of chocolatey notes in this one just kind of interacting a little bit. There's a wee bit of a symbiosis kind of thing going on there, a little bit of an interaction. But yeah, the way that middle of the palate goes together in this one is really, really very nice. I do like how this one kind of builds its layers. So as I say, woody leathery note, then you've got the smooth kind of then you've got the kind of lactosey note sitting on top of that, a bit of the coffee's very, very smooth. In the centre of your palate, the very centre of your palate, you can feel there is almost like a kind of circle there. You can feel the darker elements of the kind of chocolate coming out of this one. It does have a nice kind of darker, it's not too dark though, in fairness, it's maybe about a 60% cocoa chocolate there, and then as you move kind of into the very centre, you've got a nice, you do have a very nice kind of sweet caramelly note to it. It's got a little bit of a toasty character to it, in fairness, but the cocoa nibs that are in there, they're giving you a little bit of dryness to the chocolate as well, so I think that's what's giving you the impression of a more kind of 60%-ish cocoa chocolate to this one. But yeah, some lovely kind of sweeter brown sugars in there. It's got a little bit of a kind of toasty element to it as well, but again, it's very, very layered. The brown sugars in the very centre. As you move out a little bit, the drier cocoa nibs, and then you know, underneath it, as I say, you've got the kind of woody elements and all of this actually. So yeah, it's really interesting how that middle of your palate just kind of builds up a little bit. But yeah, when you go to the middle of your palate, if you go to the very centre of your palate and then just move forward, you do start to get a little bit of a kind of nutty quality coming out of this one. As you move further forward, you do get a few kind of like almondy, walnutty type flavours coming out of this beer, which is really nice. I like how that goes together. It just adds another little bit of kind of complexity there. There is almost just a little bit of a kind of slightly grassy, earthy kind of thing underpinning this beer as well, which is really interesting. I'm not sure if that's something from the coffee beans or the other stuff that's in here, but to me, the kind of woody, leathery notes that this beer has, you just feel a little bit of this kind of grassy, earthy sort of thing mixing in with that too. So that's another really interesting element to this beer. There's a hell of a lot of complexity in the middle third of your palate with this one, so that's where you really want to pay attention to with this beer. But I really like how that goes together. As you push further forward on that kind of middle part of your palate as well, you do start to pick out a few of the vanilla flavours just as you reach the border between the front third of your palate and the kind of middle third there. And as you reach that border, you do get a little bit of a kind of more cakey type flavour out of this one, which is quite nice. So let's focus on the hoppy part of the beer now. In the back corners of the palate, there is a good little bit of earthiness there. It's not the darkest of earthiness that you're going to come across, but it's got a nice little bit of smoothness to it. Like I say, I've had this beer sitting in the fridge, you know, maybe about 2-3 months or something like that, and plus it's maybe been stored by Systembolaget for a little bit before they've released it, so maybe the hops have dropped considerably compared to what it would have been in the beginning. But yeah, you get a really nice little bit of a smooth earthiness there. As you come further forward on the tongue, you can feel it getting a little bit less and less bitter, but then as you reach the front corners of the palate, there's a little touch of a floral aromaticity there. Then as you go round the very front curve of the tongue, there's just a little bit of a lighter grassiness there. And then behind the front curve of the palate, in that front third of the tongue, that's where you get that nice oily bubble, where the juicy, fruity esters start to push their way out of the beer. So let's focus on that a little bit. So yeah, when you first get this beer on your tongue, you will get a little bit of a kind of juicy plummy note out of it. There's maybe a teeny little bit of a raisiny type flavour out of this one. I think there's a few kind of sultana like notes to this one. If you pay attention to that front third of your palate, it does get a little bit more kind of sultana like the further you go into the aftertaste. There's a wee bit of a figgy note there, in fairness too. But as I say, plums, juicy plums, a little bit of raisins when you take it in, a kind of sultana note evolves on that front third of your palate, then some juicy figs as well. Then as you reach the kind of front tip of the tongue, you've got a little bit of a blackcurranty, blackberry-ish type flavour coming off of this one as well. So that's a really interesting point to make about this beer. I really like how the fruitiness of this one evolves. To me, it's a really kind of sultana-y type flavour that lingers there as you go into the aftertaste. But as I say, you do get a little bit of juicy plum, and there is a wee bit of a kind of blackcurranty, blackberry-ish note just lingering there. But the other things that linger into the aftertaste, the beer I think does get significantly more kind of woody as you go further into the aftertaste. The sort of slightly leathery flavours kind of linger there as well. But the brown sugars I think get a little bit sweeter and a bit more kind of sugar caney almost as you go further into the aftertaste as well. But yeah, I would say this is a very, very interesting beer. It feels like one of the more complex Imperial Stouts that I've had, and definitely one of the more complex pastry Imperial Stouts that I've had in recent times. But it gets a massive thumbs up from me, this one. Definitely one of the quirkiest things I've had, so go and try this for yourself. This is an awesome, awesome beer to do for you as a review. Let's have a little look at the mouthfeel then, and then we'll kind of round it up. So yeah, what I'll say about this one is, this is definitely not the thickest of Imperial Stouts you're going to come across. This is like top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. It has a real slickness to it. It's almost like it almost reminds me in some ways more of an Imperial Porter rather than an Imperial Stout, if you like. And I mean, this one isn't barrel aged from what I gather either. It's not a barrel aged one. This is a straight up version, so it is almost more like an imperial porter in terms of its mouthfeel. So yeah, I'd say top end of mid bodied, bottom end of full bodied. Carbonation is very smooth in this one, very very slick in its mouthfeel. So yeah, really nicely done that. In terms of the IBU count, the bitterness, I mean, I think we're just talking about maybe 50 IBUs at the very most with this one. It has got a little bit of earthiness, like I said, a little bit of roastiness from the coffee and things as well. I do find that the further you go into the aftertaste with this as well, the coffee does get a little bit drier and earthy and more bitter. So there is more and more of that kind of coming out in this one, which I think is quite good. But yeah, I mean the fruity flavours, the coffee flavours that come out of this one do give you a bit more bitterness the further you go into the aftertaste. So I'd be tempted to say, yeah, 50, maybe 60 IBUs for this one at a push. But yeah, not a lot of bitterness from the hoppy side of things from me. So I like that about this one. So lovely smoothness to the malt base. There is a degree of sweetness to this one, but I really find this beer kind of more smooth and leathery rather than anything else, rather than being overly sweet. Definitely not the sweetest of pastry stouts that you're going to come across, but on the same kind of token, it's not one of the more roasty toasty ones that you're going to come across. It must be kind of right in the middle. The fruitiness, like I said, and you've got a little bit of juiciness to it when it comes in. It dries out a little bit more the further you go into the aftertaste, but it really has a nice little bit of complexity to the fruity side of things as well. But yeah, as I say, a massive thumbs up from me for this beer, the Tiramisu Imperial Stout. Really lovely levels of complexity and a really interesting collaboration, this one, and it does make me curious to try some more beers from Ølkymisten and also from Birrificio Lambrate as well. I don't know how likely it is that I'll find these beers. It's quite rare that we get Italian beers outside of Italy, of course, and yeah, I think this one is pretty special. So if you get the chance to try this, I highly recommend that you do. Can't remember how much I paid for this beer, but you know, definitely don't regret buying this one. Awesome, awesome stuff. So yeah, let's leave this review at that then. This one is the Tiramisu Imperial Stout, coming in at 11.5%, a collaboration beer between Birrificio Lambrate, one of the older Italian breweries on the block, based in Milan, in the north of Italy, brewed in collaboration with Ølkymisten, an Italian-owned cuckoo, gypsy, nomad brewery, whatever you want to call them, in Oslo, Norway. Beautiful, beautiful beer, this one, and I highly recommend that you check this one out. So yeah, thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Birrificio Lambrate and from Ølkymisten as well. Hopefully I can review more beers from both of these breweries in the future. It was very nice to introduce them to you here on the channel for the first time, and hopefully that's not the last time you see them either. I do want to get down to Italy and review a few more beers for you, but I've really enjoyed reviewing this one, and I recommend that you check this out yourself. So until the next time, check out my social media, Slàinte just now, leave all your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys later. Slàinte, skål, salute, the Tiramisu Imperial Stout from Birrificio Lambrate in Milano in the north of Italy, brewed in collaboration with Ølkymisten from Oslo in Norway. Slàinte, skål, salute, cheers.